Hello and welcome to the next virtual lesson. This one is about the digestive system. We're not going to talk about enzymes in this lesson, that's going to be the next one. So we're just going to be doing about the organs and the route that food takes in the body. So your body is made up of loads of systems, and we talked about some of those in the last video where we talked about the levels of organisation in your body. I want you to pause the video and write down for me what organs you think are involved in the digestive system. Okay, so hopefully when we get further into the video, you'll be able to tick them off that we've talked about them and that they were correct. Before we talk about the route that food takes, we need to understand the food that we eat. This is something loads of you will be familiar with. You see this in food lessons as well as science. It's the Eat Well plate, and it's what the government sees as a healthy diet, and that's roughly a third fruit and vegetables, a third of starchy foods like bread and pasta, and then a little bit of protein, dairy, and some fat is in there as well. So what I want you to do is to pause the video and write down for me what nutrients you think is in each food group. So let's go through the answers. Starchy foods are full of carbohydrates. They are what you tend to have before running a marathon. They're also full of fibre. Dairy is protein and vitamins and minerals, also some fats as well. Obviously, high in fat and sugar is fats, and the fancy word for this is lipids. Now it's important that you know the word lipid because it will make sense when we start talking about enzymes in the next video. Meat and eggs are full of protein, vitamins and minerals as well, and fruit and vegetables are full of vitamins and minerals and fibre. Now what I want you to do for me is to pause the video again and to write down what you think each of these nutrients do in our body. So carbohydrates provide energy. As I said, it's what you'd have before running a marathon. So usually the night before you'd have a big bowl of pasta or bread because it's going to give you that energy that you need there and then. It's also why a lot of breakfasts that you have will be toast or cereal because it's that carb element. Fibre aids digestion and helps your bowel movements. It essentially makes your poo a bit more solid and helps the whole system work properly. Protein is for growth and repair. Protein is made up of something called amino acids, and amino acids are what your cells need. We're going to do about this a little bit more when we talk about DNA, but that's why if you're working out, you would have a protein shake, or bodybuilders may have a protein-heavy diet full of meat and eggs and beans, that sort of thing. Vitamins maintain a healthy body, so you have vitamin A, B, C, iron. They're all things that your cells need for a various reason. And finally, fat is stored energy. So when you've run out of the energy from the carbs, your body will burn your fat. That's where a lot of HIIT workouts come in. They're trying to burn the fat, that stored energy, rather than other stores in your body. So now that we understand some of the food and nutrients that our body has, I want you to think what each of these pictures might be. So they are taken either with a normal camera or an electron microscope. So what do you think they are? Pause the video and write them down for me. So some of these pictures are a little bit gross. We have your tongue, taste buds, the food in your esophagus. I think that's a delightful one. The small intestine wall and your large intestine. And you'll see your large intestine is quite moist, which will make sense later in the video when you understand what its job is. So the digestive system is an organ system in a mammal where several organs work together to digest and absorb food. This links back to the last lesson where we talked about a cell, so for example a smooth muscle cell, making smooth muscle tissue, making the small intestine organ and forming the digestive system. So cells to tissues to organs to organ system, and they're all working together. It's one giant tube basically through your body with the sole purpose of taking out the good stuff that your body needs and getting rid of the rest. There's two key words here that are going to be quite important, and they are soluble and insoluble. Insoluble means that it cannot be dissolved. Insoluble means that it can be dissolved. So an example of this would be sugar or salt is soluble because it will dissolve in water, but sand isn't because it won't dissolve. So I want you to pause the video here and to write this down for me and fill in the blanks. The food we eat is made up of large and insoluble molecules. You can have those words the other way around, of course. Your body can't absorb and use these molecules. They need to be broken down and digested to form small, soluble molecules that can be then used by our cells. The digestive system carries out both chemical and mechanical digestion of our food. And again, you can have those two last words the other way around if you want. It would still make sense. Here is a diagram of our digestive system, something that you'll probably be familiar with from looking in textbooks. We have the mouth. This is where digestion starts. Food is broken down into smaller pieces, and the digestion of starch happens with enzymes, which again is in the next lesson. This is mechanical digestion because your teeth are breaking and crunching stuff down into smaller pieces. There's also some chemical digestion with the enzymes, which are chemicals in your body. Afterwards, it travels down your esophagus, which is basically a big tube that squeezes food into your stomach. In outer space, even though there's no gravity, food is still able to get to your stomach because it's the esophagus squeezing it down rather than gravity that's pushing that food down. Obviously, gravity helps, but you don't need it, as astronauts are able to eat just like us. Your stomach is filled with hydrochloric acid, which is pH 1, a really strong acid, and it digests the food and it churns, which imagine a washing machine going round and round. That's what your stomach does. So it's a lot of chemical digestion is happening in your stomach. The food then travels to your small intestine, where fats are digested. A lot of the enzyme activity is happening here, and nutrients are absorbed. That's the really important bit to note with the small intestine. The nutrients diffuse from your small intestine into your bloodstream so that your cells are able to use them. And if we're getting a little bit complicated here, when diffusion can't take place anymore because there's too much sugar and things in your blood, active transport will take place instead. And if this is all confusing you, go back and watch the diffusion and active transport videos. After the small intestine, it goes to your large intestine, and this is where water is absorbed, which is why in that picture the large intestine looked quite moist, because it absorbs the water and essentially makes your feces a bit more solid. You have your liver and pancreas, which aren't on this diagram, but they are important because they make bile and digestive enzymes which break down your food. So they'll be a little bit more talked about in the next video because that's their main job with digestion, is helping to break down your food chemically. Finally, you have your rectum and your anus right at the bottom of that tube. The rectum stores your waste, and then it sends a little signal to your brain to say you need to go to the toilet, where of course it then passes through your body through the anus, which is the last step on the digestion journey. So just to show you those steps again, obviously we have the mouth out of frame, the esophagus, then food travels to your stomach, then it goes to the small intestine, the large intestine, the rectum, and the anus. And it is important that you remember the order that food is travelling in your body, and think of it as a flow chart, because that's the easiest way to remember it. So the final thing for you to do is to go away and test this knowledge that you've learned. So the first thing is to create a meal plan that has all the food groups in it. That isn't just chocolate, chocolate and chocolate. That is your carbohydrates, protein, fruit and vegetables, dairy, and a little bit of fat, which would be your chocolate. Then I want you to research the diet of an Olympic athlete and compare your meal plan to it. So what are Olympic athletes eating? How much food are they eating? A lot more? Are they eating more protein or carbohydrates potentially? So have a little look at an Olympic athlete's diet. And finally, research a dietary intolerance such as gluten or lactose intolerance. Look at why they're intolerant and perhaps alternatives that they'd need to eat. So go back to your meal plan. Would that be okay for somebody that was lactose intolerant or somebody that was gluten intolerant? And if not, what substitutes could you have in place instead? So well done for listening. Hopefully you get on okay with those tasks. The next video is going to be about enzymes, which are protein chemicals that help to break down your food, and without them, life simply couldn't exist.